Okay, welcome. We're going to be talking about chinuch today, and again, this is a merit of Rachalea Bas Rav Chaim Tzvi. Our topic today is going to be keep teaching kids not to afflict each other with words, which is a huge topic. So before I even begin with the topic of Onaat Dvarim for kids, I want to talk about it briefly in terms of how this relates to us. People mistakenly think as long as nothing concrete happened, nothing happened. So you all might recall how your mother said, or didn't, I hope they didn't, but let's say they did, sticks and stones could break your bones, but words can never harm you. It's so untrue. In fact, if sticks and stones break your bones, odds are you'll get to the clinic, you'll get casted, you'll be okay, but words could be devastating. Now, of course, ideally, when you're an adult, and this is why for children this is much, much more serious than for adults, you could learn to sift. So, as an adult, there are things that we'll hear and take very much to heart, and things that we hear we don't take so much to heart. So, an example of that would be, let's say you're on your way to the kotel, and you took an amount of small change with you to give to tzedakah, and one of the tzedakah collectors would like you to give more money. And their lives are hard, and they're sometimes bitter, and sometimes somewhat theatrical also. So let's say the person begins shouting at you and wishing you ill. So you could either step back and say, this person is so extremely difficult circumstances inside, not only outside, but this is where she is. And not see this as having anything to do with you as a person, or you could take it all personally. Most people are somewhere in between. They don't, because she says you're cruel, you're heartless, you're whatever. We don't necessarily review our lives and say, yes, I am cruel, yes, heartless. That's a good description. But we don't feel totally innocent either, because we have parts of ourselves that are not, let's say, as kind and as sensitive as they might be. A child isn't going to make that differentiation. They'll hear exactly what's said and believe it. They believe everything. You could have a child who gets report cards with 90s, 95s, 98s on them, and they're told you're a stupid idiot. That's what they think. You could have a child, I have a friend who's, how should I say, average, okay? Just average in appearance. Not somebody who you would turn around to look at this way, not somebody who would turn around to look at that way, somebody who you might not recall seeing. Her mother wanted to have a ballerina with blonde hair and fair skin, and spent a significant part of my friend's childhood informing her that she didn't make the grade. She came from a wealthy background, and in the school that she attended, part of the culture of the school required a fancy dance, sort of a prom, where everybody got dressed up to the extreme, and it was all very formal and cultured. Nobody invited her. So to her, this was, I can't think, it was so cataclysmic in her childhood, I have no words. I certainly, as her friend, this is many decades later, I still see the imprint of those days that passed upon her in terms of her self-esteem. Now conversely, if you were to have somebody have an event like this happen to them when they're, let's say, in midlife and content with where they are in life, and not so vulnerable, you don't even take it in. I was with somebody who's significantly overweight, and the person called a taxi. So the taxi didn't come. So they said they would come within 15 minutes. Over a half hour passed, they're not there. And she got into another taxi just as the first taxi slid in. And he began to abuse her. You're a fat elephant. You look like, didn't it like, and where were you, honey? A half hour is a half hour. by. It didn't even touch her. So everything depends on how childlike you are. There are children who are very adult, who have strong senses of security, who are a tiny minority of children. And you have most children who are so vulnerable that they believe everything. So because of this, Onaat Dvarim is very serious when it comes to children. What is Onaat Dvarim? It's intentionally using words to hurt someone. Saying what you know the person will perceive as an attack. So for those of us who aren't particularly sensitive, Rambam gives us some criteria. Don't bring up what people are trying to conceal. In other words, if you know they're ashamed of something, don't talk